we're getting live visuals from the spot in Nepal. These are visuals from Pokhara where the plane crash took place. As of now, efforts are on to put out the blaze. Remember, a Yeti Air plane flying to Pokhara from Kathmandu crashed near the destination airport. This is an aircraft that had over 60 passengers on board. Pankaj Das, my colleague, joining us with the details from the spot. Pankaj, what are the details coming in? वहाँ पे क्या situation है? Have officials revealed any details?
कसरी ताने त त्यहाँ जानै सक्नु परेन
पोखरा से काठमांडू से जो पोखरा यती एयरलाइंस का एटीआर विमान एक उड़ान भरा था, वो लैंडिंग से कुछ पहले ही पोखरा के पास ही वो दुर्घटनाग्रस्त हो गया है। तेज धमाके के साथ तेज धुएं की आवाज जब लोगों ने देखी, उसके बाद मालूम चला कि ये विमान दुर्घटनाग्रस्त हो गया है। एयरलाइंस की तरफ से ये बताया गया कि इसमें 68 पैसेंजर और 4 क्रू मेंबर शामिल थे इस विमान में। अभी तक वहाँ चूंकि कोई भी टीम वहाँ नहीं पहुँच पाई है, अब थोड़ी देर में पहुँचेगी क्योंकि ये कुछ देर पहले की घटना है, इसलिए जब वहाँ कोई ऑफिशियल पहुँचते हैं उसके बाद इसके आगे की और डिटेल हमें जानकारी हो सकती है। फिलहाल ये कि एयरलाइंस का एटीआर विमान जो काठमांडू से पोखरा जा रहा था, वो लैंडिंग से कुछ पहले दुर्घटनाग्रस्त हो गया।
जी पंकज, कोई इन्फॉर्मेशन है कि इस प्लेन में कितने पैसेंजर्स थे या हाउ मेनी पीपल वर ऑन बोर्ड?
ये 68 पैसेंजर थे और 4 क्रू मेंबर। तो एयरलाइंस की तरफ से अभी इतना ही बताया गया कि इसमें 68 पैसेंजर और 4 क्रू मेंबर थे।
ओके, एनी इन्फॉर्मेशन ऑन हुआ क्या था? व्हाट वाज द रीजन फॉर दिस क्रैश?
अभी तक कोई भी स्पेसिफिक रीजन नहीं बताया गया है, बस इतना है कि वो जो एयरपोर्ट जो लैंडिंग से ठीक पहले वहाँ पहाड़ की चोटियां है, वही चोटियों में से वो म्यूजियम जो है वो टकरा गया है। जो लोकल वहाँ के लोग हैं जिन्होंने ये देखा है, उनका कहना है कि वही पहाड़ की चोटियों से टकराने के बाद विमान दुर्घटनाग्रस्त हो गया है।
जी, तो वहाँ पे अभी रेस्क्यू ऑपरेशन चल रहे हैं?
बिल्कुल, गवर्नमेंट ने तुरंत ही रेस्क्यू टीम को है वहाँ दुर्घटनास्थल पर भेज दिया है। अभी रेस्क्यू जो लोकल लोग हैं वो रेस्क्यू चला रहे हैं, लेकिन अभी जो रेस्क्यू टीम है वो गवर्नमेंट की वो अभी पहुंच रही है थोड़ी देर में।
ओके, तो विजुअल्स में हम देख रहे हैं कि देयर इज अ ह्यूज ब्लेज, आग लगी है और काफी लोकल रेजिडेंट्स भी वहाँ पे उन्होंने भी ज्वाइन किया है यहाँ पे रेस्क्यू एफर्ट्स में। अभी सिचुएशन क्या है पंकज?
अभी तो लोग यहाँ जैसे ये आग है, आग को बुझाने का काम किया जाएगा सबसे पहले, क्योंकि आग की तेज लगते हैं वो बिना जो है दमकल के वो संभव नहीं है। अब लोग वहाँ लगे हुए हैं जो आसपास जो मलबा है उसको उसकी आग को बुझाने का काम कर रहे हैं, लेकिन जब तक रेस्क्यू टीम नहीं पहुंची है बहुत ही मुश्किल है वहाँ पे कुछ भी कोई भी काम करना।
Okay, all right. Pankaj, thank you for joining us on the broadcast. Madhav Das Gopalakrishnan also on the broadcast with us. Madhav, the details coming in are that the flight had several passengers on board. It crashed. No details being revealed on what was the reason for this crash.
Well, it is, of course, still a bit early to know the real reason for this particular crashes. Was it because of any kind of weather or conditions, whether it's mechanical error, whether there's human error involved? At this point of time, it would be very difficult to really say that. But yes, a total of 68 passengers on board this particular ATR aircraft that flew to Pokhara from Kathmandu and, in fact, crashing now in Pokhara on Sunday morning. Of course, 4 crew members were also on board this, which means that, of course, it's very early to speculate what really the condition is. But, of course, images on social media platforms, if you go by the kind of images of smoke that come out of the crash site, are concerned. Certainly, of course, it does not appear to be a very, very strong possibility of major survivors in this particular matter. Of course, it all depends on the official word before we can formally confirm what is the status of these individuals. But certainly a very tragic incident taking place with over 68 passengers and 4 crew members on board this particular aircraft. Back to you.
Right. Only preliminary details available as of now, but we're seeing the visuals on our screens. After the plane crash, there was a massive blaze. Several local residents also seem to have joined the rescue operations there at the spot and are trying trying to douse the flames?
Well, absolutely, and also a rescue team has been deployed, is what we understand. They have been sent on a helicopter to the crash site as well to aid in the rescue operations over there. But certainly, of course, while the locals may be trying to help, certainly the circumstances in which the crash took place and the possibility of survivors also, of course, is something that we need to look at in this kind of a situation, whether any kind of aid can be given to them and if there are, in fact, survivors. Remember the fact that this has happened between the old airport and the Pokhara International Airport. That is the information coming in. So if there is any possibility of survivors, the fact that it's happened in a crowded area in a town near the town of Pokhara.
Definitely very tragic, very sad, and it's a very major tragedy, I'll call it. And I hope there are survivors. And you see, in Nepal, it's mostly hilly terrain. And in that hilly terrain, weather changes are also very swift. And these are winter months. During winter months, you have fog, and you also have low clouds.
Okay.
So because of this fog and low clouds, sometimes in hills, the very movement is very swift. And you may get into this poor visibility condition. You may get disorientated. And thereafter, of course, controlled flight in the terrain, that is, you crash. So that is very unfortunate. We don't know what is actually caused, but these could be, contributing factors which we can just, sort of think of that this could have been the cause. I don't think these days most of the aeroplanes, there's no malfunction as such in the, there's no technical malfunction.
Okay.
Rarely accident happens because of maybe human error and weather. So these are the two important aspects which you have to keep in mind. And very, very unfortunate. We are all shocked, and every person in the aviation fraternity must be shocked. And but unfortunately, as I told you, the terrain in Nepal, in those areas, Pokhara and all that, is very inhospitable, very hostile terrain. Weather changes are very, very rapid. And this is a winter season. So the early morning fog, and then, of course, fog lifts into the low clouds, which can pose serious threat to the safety.
So you're saying the hilly terrain could also be one of the reasons, and especially during the winter, there is fog that may have, hurt the visibility as well, and that may have caused this incident to take place.
Yes, that may be one of the possible reasons. You can't rule out others because only investigation will be able to, pinpoint the root cause. But we are just assuming, and that may be possibly in those areas because it's a hilly terrain, most of the places. Even the approaches to those, most of the runways, including Kathmandu, is a very tricky approaches. Okay. And you require really very highly skilled pilots, which of course they are. But then you see sometimes you get trapped in bad weather and you may not have your, ground equipment like instrument landing system or your DME, etc., which may not be available or may not be serviceable at that time or can also misbehave. So that these are the, possible causes.
Okay.
Rest, of course, will be known only after the investigation.
Yes, of course. These are only preliminary details coming in, and we're also just playing out the visuals from the spot. We can see thick plumes of smoke. So there was a massive blaze. As of now, rescue teams have been deployed to the spot. There are a lot of local residents as well who have rushed in immediately for the rescue operations there. So, as we continue to get these visuals, Air Commodore, just want to ask you, because you mentioned the hilly terrain, the fog, and, the kind of hostile conditions in these areas in Pokhara as well as Kathmandu regions. Wouldn't there be checks and balances in place, because this was a passenger flight? The initial details suggesting that there were about 68 passengers on board.
Definitely, madam, there will be checks and balances. There will be standard operating procedures, and there will be more alertness, vigilance, and effort to have a better situational awareness. But sometimes, these things maybe sometimes you get suddenly caught into that adverse weather conditions, and one wrong, step on your part can lead to disorientation. Disorientation, you after you get disorientated, you lose your situation awareness, where exactly you are, whether you are flying with bank, whether you are flying nose down, nose up. So this kind of thing, and pilots then, it's possible that pilots may panic
Okay.
at that time, and in panic, their response may be little, may not be that professional, because if you are in panic, your mental faculties, performance come down almost by 50%. So that is a problem. So basically this adverse weather condition, fog, winters, it's very, very bad, flying conditions. And one had to be very, very careful, one had to plan properly, one had to think ahead. Pilots have to be knowledgeable about causes of spatial disorientation, weather developments in particular areas, particular regions. So all that is very, very essential. And if you, lose or if you become complacent and you do not remember what has been taught to you during your ground training, and maybe lack of monitoring, lack of supervision, maybe lack of the sport services at the airport. So all these things, there are a number of contributing factors which can cause this kind of, mishap. And one has to be very, very careful, vigilant, alert during these flying, particularly during adverse weather conditions and at mountains, because poor visibility, fog, and low clouds, coupled with the terrain, is a very deadly combination. It can lead to catastrophic consequences. Everywhere we will have to be very alert during this season. In fact, Aviation Safety India, in our country, we send precaution to be taken, kind of advisory from Aviation Safety India, that pilots should be very alert, vigilant, clear on these issues. And they should, we have published videos also on this. So, videos on safety. So winter precautions, summer precautions, monsoon precautions. So you have to be, educate your pilots, create awareness among them, and the management has to be very alert, vigilant. Airport staff, ATC, everybody has a role to play, and they have to give their best during this, critical conditions of flying.
Okay, because you mentioned human error, that split second could be very, very crucial in deciding between life and death, and it can have very, very catastrophic consequences as well. So that split second decision by the pilot could also play a very, very important role in such cases. But Air Commodore, just want to ask you, because of the dramatic visuals that we're playing out, in fact now visuals also showing the rescue teams just reaching this spot. Helicopters had been deployed for the rescue teams to immediately reach the spot. Of course, it was the local residents who immediately rushed in, but we're seeing the kind of massive blaze at this spot. Just want to ask you, in such cases, what are the chances of survival with so many passengers and crew members on board? Of course, the rescue is going to be the top priority of the government for the moment.
Madam, chances of this kind of, crash, chances of survival in this kind of crash are very, very remote. And it's all providence which can save people. So basically in such kind of, that means that it has engulfed in a major fire. That means the impact has been massive, and aircraft always have a lot of fuel in them, and that fuel explodes and causes, further death.
Details available, but what do you think could be the cause for this incident to take place? We were just speaking to the Air Commodore, who said that because of the hostile and inhospitable terrain in Nepal, that could be one of the biggest factors.
See, it is impossible to say at this stage, and it would be wrong to assume the cause of the crash. But it's very tragic. But one thing I can tell you, what I'm reading is that this was a ATR-72 aircraft. Okay, this is one of the most safest and the best turboprop aircrafts in the world. They're flying all over the world, including India. So it was not, and it's an ATR-72-600, but it's not a very, very old plane. So I fail to understand what must have happened. And but the chance of survival, it is a 72-seater plane. And you said almost 60 passengers were there. So I think the chances of survival are very remote, and I hope, what can one say really in a situation like that? But it's extremely tragic, and these kind of crashes affect the whole industry overall all over the world. Now an inquiry will have to be conducted that what was wrong, was it a human error or a technical error, or whether weather forecast was there, weather was bad. But I think one will have to wait and understand what happened. But overall, it's a very tragic situation that has happened.
Yes. All right, Mr. Parvez Zamania, thank you for joining us. We'll continue coming back to you to find out more on what the situation is like, what could be the reason for the crash, also getting you ground reports from Nepal as the rescue operations continue.